Who has the final say? Who's the boss?
She has the final say for sure.
Yeah. I am Boris Yu, food lover and oversized fashionista. YOON and Verbal of Ambush will join me at NARISAWA in this episode. NARISAWA is famous for his masterfully innovative cuisine. Both YOON and Verbal are regulars at this restaurant. Ambush, created by YOON and Verbal, is probably one of the most dazzling names now in the fashion world. Starting from jewelry design, the two have gradually stepped into the fashion world. Each of them will share with us their family backgrounds and experiences in their newly adopted home in Japan. We also talked about the original intention of Ambush custom jewelry, their views on social media, and expectations for their own business. Welcome to our series on food and fashion.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Tell me something about your background and the history and the origin of your famous Ambush label.
I'm Korean American background. I was born in Korea, but I grew up in US. Because of my dad's work, we lived in like all different places like Hawaii, California, Seattle. I went to school in Boston. And I also spent some time in Korea, South Korea, Seoul.
Right.
So I have, very like multicultural background in that sense, because I was exposed to so many different parts of US as well as just being Asian and American and all that. And now I live in Japan, which I can call home because it's been close to 15 years. So that's kind of like my background.
Well, I was born and raised in Tokyo. Went to international school, went to college in Boston. That's where I met YOON.
All right.
And upon graduating, I returned to Tokyo, where my music career started. And since then, YOON moved to Tokyo as well. One thing led to another. We started making jewelry, and that's where Ambush spawned.
So it was just kind of like hobby that turned into business.
I want me to ask you about how your family influenced your career development. Do they have a certain expectations of being Asian family?
For sure. I mean, because my dad was in the U.S. Army, we always had, I was exposed to that side of, so many different things. Because even when I lived in Seoul, we frequently, go to U.S. base and I was exposed to different races, different backgrounds. So I think looking back, it wasn't the easiest because, that job requires you to move everywhere. You just have to pick up and go. And, I must change school over 8 times throughout my middle school to elementary school. Wow. And it wasn't the easiest when you're a kid because you can never make friends, right? Because you're just
You have to.
Yeah, you just have to go.
You're very transient.
And I spent a lot of time I think myself reading and doing things. But in a way, now that I look back, I kind of really appreciate those times because that made me got into what I'm into now. Because I was able to merge into books and magazines and always kind of imagine what it would be like to be in that world. And now that we talk about Asianness, and when we finally settled in US, they became just regular Asian, Korean American immigrants, just doing small family business and working 14, 16 hours each day. So I pretty much had to raise myself and my brother. Because, only time I see my parents is I go to school in the morning and then I hear them come home when I'm already in bed at nighttime. Right. And that was just that's what it was. And yeah, that's just how I grew up. But also knowing that hopefully, we also have this kind of responsibility that, because we're immigrants, we kind of feel we have to succeed in life to kind of, we kind of repay back kind of thing. I think we have I think that's very Asian thing.
How about Verbal? In Japan, that's very different, no?
I'm fully Korean. My father was a Korean-Japanese second generation.
Right.
Met my mother, who was a traveling ballet dancer. So she was a professional ballet dancer, and then when she landed in Japan, that's when she met my father. So growing up, I was very heavily influenced by my mother's artistic side and also the woes of being a creative person. You know, she's always used to tell me it's really difficult to do something creative and make a living. But then she would always inspire me to just go outside of the comfort zone. So she would always go off to Paris on her own. I remember when I was a kid, you know, and she would just go to England and she'd make me tag along. And then she would go to the States. And the first time I was in the States, it was with my mother. And that's where I actually encountered hip hop music too. So thanks to my mother and the travels she recommended, you know, I pretty much got to experience the, you know, Western music, the Western fashion. And so, you know, I'm very heavily influenced by, you know, the way my mother was very active, just going outside and meeting people and, you know, getting the influence.
So in a way, you're very lucky that your family didn't pressure you into taking a professional, what do you call it, salaryman job in.
Her parents are the nicest people in the world, super chill. They believe in Yoon's creativity, you know, because she's very strong-willed. Yoon knows what she's doing. She's like, when she's on the go, she's like, doesn't stop. And I think her parents know that too.
Well, because like my parents, like I think they do when they were young. I remember them telling me that my dad wanted to be a journalist, but he couldn't because of the family situation. Same with my mom, like she wanted to do art, but she couldn't because of the family situation. So in that way, they never really stopped me when I wanted to like pursue something creative other than, you know, like typical secure jobs that, you know, we're all familiar with. So I was quite blessed that, you know, for them, like my mom, I remember like, she always tell me like, you know, like women, like it's not about just all like getting old and getting married and just having a family. You know, you also need to find what you like to do, and it's very important. So from young, like I've been installed that way of like thinking.
So it's very true. I think, especially for us Asians, whether you go, you know, guy or girl, you know, we must be more open to other things than just the standard expectations.
We have this group chat with her and her parents and me.
Oh, really?
And she's kind of shy about talking about her, you know, accomplishments. So I would send them, you know, picture of her on a cover of a magazine, or I tell her, you know, when she landed the Dior job, you know, I was like, your daughter's designing for Dior Homme jewelry, you know? And then as much as they were surprised, they were more like proud, you know, but then they always seemed to know that, you know, she was gonna do something great. So, you know, they're happy, and, you know, that's the kind of communication we have.
Thing about food that, like, you know, I think what makes like humans so special is that we're the only ones who actually care about the taste. Do you think animals do care about the taste?
No.
You know, and that we actually care about the taste enough that we turn it into art to.
Don't forget, we're the
cook
dominant species on this earth. I think currently now, I think the offering around the world, there's just so much offering around the world. I think, well, this is like the best time to
It's
try
super
different
exciting.
cuisine. Yeah.
And I feel like food, like as a genre, is the only genre that actually they don't really. There's no boundaries. People actually bond over it. I feel like fashion's becoming quite conservative with a lot of issues.
Maybe fashion's becoming very, let's say, commercial. Yeah.
How about food though? You know, it's like depending on a genre, no?
Food is it's less demanding because I think each chef knows what their style is. At the moment, if you look at food-wise, from comfort food to fine dining, you have tradition to very avant-garde. They can all survive. And the good thing is, every chef is serving the same thing but in their own different version. To me, it's very interesting. I mean, he was here since 7:30 this morning. So they spent like more than 2 or 3 hours to create something for you in 2 or 3 hours. So, and then look, I think it's all out. It's not just us to respect that sort of attitude. They have to respect the ingredients and the customer too. Because at the end of the day, I think I always tell chefs in a restaurant, the most inconsistent people are the customers. Because you're coming out different mood.
It's true. I think it's the same with fashion too. And I think sometimes people don't quite comprehend why certain things cost so much. They don't realize like how long it took for us to go find that yarn, dyed it in a certain way, we put it in a shape, like, you know, all the time we put into prior to that, it's that sweater becoming into its own shape, like those are all in that cost, you know. And I think sometimes it's our responsibility as a creative people to also tell that story too.
That's something Yoon's actually really into right now. It's gonna be like a limited run thing that we're trying to experiment and do, because that adds dimension to the shopping experience. Because you can go online and see a t-shirt, you might like whatever we have online, but there's some things that we're gonna only have in the store. It kind of roots back to the way we started jewelry, because before the whole PAL thing happened, we were doing couture, because we got a lot of orders for customized design pieces. You know, right. Some artists would approach us, and that's what we started. And it was an experience, a communication and conversation. But I think we're kind of going back to that root in a sense, like communicating to the, you know,
well, it's not just communicating, but I in a way, like, I kind of want to just have fun. And what I mean by fun, it's not that what I'm doing is not fun. I want it to kind of play, not constricted by season or a certain like thing that we need to. I just wanted to have fun with it. Let's just like make just a few lots, and then people ask for it, like, you know, well, it's not that they ask for it, we'll just put in the store quietly, and then if people discover it, they discover it, kind of thing. But, you know, it's like same thing with food, like, you know, it's just, well, what I like to say is like, at the end, there's no rules. What's more important is the story you're telling, is it interesting? Yes. And that creativity could coexist in the big picture, and it's just that, you know, that's what makes it fun. It's just that everyone tells different stories. Like the food experience, like you said, it should exist in different forms.
Exactly. I think the social media and the smartphone is destroying a lot of that.
I don't necessarily think it's destroying it. I think there's also became a platform for a lot of the independent brands to come break free of. There's a whirlwind that's happening, but within that, like, the speed that you like to go, at the end of the day, is your decision. For me, like, social media is like a lot of messages and things that we get through our, you know, social media from our customers. And I get surprised, like, what kind of people purchase from, like, different, like, you know, someone from, like, South Africa purchased that. Like, that's, like, I'm happy to see that, you know what I mean? Because I would think most of our customers are more, like, in the Asia region or something, but it's exciting, you know what I mean? I think social media made that happen. So.
I think this whole social media is like a portal into the rest of the world. Yeah. So it's not just one brand telling you one thing. So an unsuspecting individual will be incapacitated because they don't know what to choose. But I think someone with a certain taste, you know, looking for something, you know, will be able to fall into what we're doing and the message that, let's say, Ambush is trying to send. And it's very helpful for us because it helps us create our narrative and tell our story consistently.
As a husband and wife team, I mean, professionally, no, in your work, how do you integrate your ideas, or do you have any conflict?
It takes a lot of communication. I mean, we're constantly talking about how to get the business going, how to split and all this stuff. And it wasn't easy in the beginning because, you know, there's a lot of know-hows we didn't have, not, like, you know,
so
knowledges and everything.
So it's a learning process.
Yeah, everything, every day is like learning process. Yeah. So after a few years, like, you know, we see more each other's strength, and then we try to like just focus on that rather than what we're not good at. So certain things that I'm not good at, I let him just take care of it. I just find that kind of waste of time for me to like work on that side while I'm work on like what I'm good at. So now we kind of split the roles of like, you know, what we do within the company.
Despite their fame, I found both Yoon and Verbal are very easygoing and to the point. I enjoy talking to both of them. I can really feel how they support each other and making Ambush like their own home. I believe they will always have a very important position in the fashion world. Hello, Chef.
Hi.
Nice to meet you again. This Chef Yoshihiro Narisawa of the world-famous Narisawa restaurant. In my opinion, probably the best restaurant in Japan and also the best chef in the world. So please introduce your restaurant.
はい、成沢義弘です。東京の南青山で、レストランをやっております。今から、そうですね、16年前に、ここでオープンいたしました。世界中から多くのゲストをお迎えしております。